Ultimately, if you analyze your life, I keep coming to this conclusion over and over again as I watch human behavior. Ultimately, if you think about it, every single thing that you do for the purpose of changing how you feel. Hopefully to feel better somehow. Every single thing you do. I can't think of a thing that doesn't fall into that. Can you, buddy? I mean, think about, you buy a new car so you will get around better or whatever, but ultimately you buy the kind of car that you buy because you want to feel a certain way. You be with people because you want to feel a certain way. You eat food because you want to feel a certain way. Many times we eat food just for the purpose of feeling a certain way. Yes? I mean, does that sound accurate? And so we spend our lives going after things to help us feel this or that way. And it seems to me that we have a choice about just feeling that way in the first place without the having to go do or be or have anything to get there. And how is that? What is the way that we can feel any darn thing that we want? We think in ways that will create that feeling. Remember, never forget this. Your feelings are preceded by your thoughts. And so if you're ever feeling yuck in any way, you know, what he's saying was right on the nose. Just change how you're thinking, and you have, based on that formula, the right to the resulting thought, the resulting feelings. You don't have to go out and do or be or have anything to create that feeling that you want. We had some people in our up in our neighborhood who there was a young lady who killed herself last weekend. My son knew her, and then I had another friend childhood friend who about 3 weeks ago killed himself. You know, and they said, well, what was wrong with him? And what was wrong with her? We asked my parents, because I didn't know anything about this until recently. And then this girl who killed herself over the weekend asked my son, do you know her? What was going on? And it all boiled down to, for both of them, they felt yucky, and they thought that shooting themselves would help make them feel better. I mean, that's clear at one end of the spectrum of trying to help myself out kind of idea. But you go all the way across the spectrum of behaviors that we do. You know, you're in school right now so that you will get a degree, so that you will get a job, so ultimately you will feel successful or whatever. Now, when I was, does that make sense to anyone? I mean, everyone? Do you follow that line of reasoning? When I was going to school, I came upon, and I don't hear very much out of this group anymore, but there was a group from Harvard called the Harvard Mind-Body Wellness Clinic, Harvard Mind-Body Cancer Clinic. And a lot of the people some of the people who were involved in the early research on meditation, Herbert Benson being one of them, was involved right in the middle of this Harvard Mind Body Cancer Clinic, and they would work with people who were, terminally ill with cancer. And they understood that there is a mind-body connection going on, that there is a mind-body, there's an interconnectedness between our thoughts, feelings, and attitudes and our physiology. And there's a whole field of research that's going on right now. Still the bully zone. We're buddies, not bullies. Okay. They call this field psychoneuro, it's a long word, immunology, or PNI. Psycho meaning mind, neuro, nervous system, immune, somebody besides her, immune system, and then the study of, right? So we've got the study of how the mind, attitudes, thoughts, feelings affect the immune system. There's just I wanted to relate to you a couple studies that are really fascinating that they have, amongst the monster amounts of research to show that how you feel and how you think affect how you are physically. A couple that came to mind, well, they did, let's see, let me find the first one that's the most interesting. The first study that came to mind was, or I thought was really interesting, they did one study with rabbits. And initially this study, and I think it was done at Ohio State, is where they did this one, where they had all these rabbits were part of a cholesterol study. It had nothing to do with what they intended for it to be, or what it turned out to be, but it intended to be initially a study that was going to look at cholesterol levels among rabbits. And they gave all of these rabbits in this group a certain diet. And they wanted to see how they were how they were developing cholesterol. And so they fed all these rabbits, were all in cages in this one particular place, and they the attendant there, the assistant, would give them all their food and stuff, and then they killed them, and then they opened them up and they checked their blood vessels for cholesterol levels. Well, what was interesting about this is there was one group of rabbits. Amongst the same group, there was one group of rabbits that fared differently. They had less cholesterol, fewer heart problems. They were faring a lot better. And it shouldn't have happened because everyone in this group was given the same meal. They were given the same, they were all in the same cages. You know, they were all, essentially everything was the same. And so they went through, and there was one group of these multiple bunch of rabbits that was faring differently for heart health. They thought, what in the world's going on here? How could this happen? Because it shouldn't have happened. So they did it again. And sure enough, there was one set of rabbits that fared differently for heart health than all the other rabbits. They thought, what is going on here? We're feeding, we're doing everything the same. And the researchers asked the assistant, well, is there anything you do differently for this group of rabbits? And she said, well, I really like rabbits. So these ones that are about at arm's level, I'll take them out and I just cuddle them. I like to pet them and caress them and that. But that's the only difference. And so they ran another study where they had rabbits who got, they called it in this study, well, they called it a different study that I'll tell you about, kinesthetic tactile stimulation. Kinesthetic tactile stimulation, meaning touching, loving them. And sure enough, the rabbits that got the kinesthetic tactile stimulation fared better than the ones who didn't. They did another study with preemies. You know what a preemie is, right? Babies born prematurely, and they had them in their little incubator places.
Are we talking about humans?
Yeah, in this case it was humans. And so they had two sets, all of them randomly assigned to either the control group or the experimental group. They were all kind of in the same same ward in this hospital, but they were all kind of in the same state as far as their premature level. They were all in fine shape. They were just born prematurely. And so what they did is, for 15 minutes a day, they would have somebody come in and pick up this group of preemies. The control group didn't get any of this, but they would pick up and cuddle the preemie for 15 minutes a day. Okay? Every one of the preemies in this group, yes. This group didn't get any of the kinesthetic tactile stimulation, love. And amongst the many different things that they looked at, they found that these preemies who got the touch, who got the love, grew 50% more weight per day than this group. There's research to show that more people die, those of you who are in the stress class, in the face-to-face class, remember this, more people die on Monday morning at 9 o'clock than any other time of the week. What's going on at Monday morning at 9 o'clock that's different than any other time of the week?
Morning
Sports Center's over, sports talk show's over. Dang, they're still not playing NBA basketball. Wait, no, they are.
Family goes to work.
Yeah, you go to work, and most people hate their jobs. There is another day of the year that more people die on than any other day of the year, and it's not April 15th. That's the one that's my least favorite day of the year. No?
New Year's Day.
Close and close. Day after Christmas. The day after Christmas, there are more deaths in this country than any other day.
I was just going to say, when I worked at the mortuary New Year's Day, that week was really bad.
That was a big day.
But New Year's Day was like the day.
You'd see more on that day?
Yeah.
When you're there?
That's one mortuary, so I don't know what other stuff.
But you're in that same vicinity of time. What's going on that period of time? What that's different than every other week of the year?
New Year's resolution.
You got to face your next year. Okay, family's going home. Christmas is over, so all the anticipation of what you wanted maybe didn't get realized, buddy.
Yeah, like the whole hype after Christmas, like you're all happy to eat Christmas and your hopes are really up, and then the day afterwards, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's never different.
Yeah. It's really interesting. There was one study, I went to a conference, the National Wellness Conference a few years ago, and there's this guy who's talking about heart disease. And he said, so when you think of heart disease, and you think of what are the risk factors for heart disease, what are the common ones that come to mind when you think, oh, you got to be careful about, blah, fill in the blank. What comes to mind as the common risk factors that most of us in America recognize are risk factors for heart disease? So,
Diet.
okay, diet, exercise, what's cholesterol, stress, some. What? Being a male, you are higher risk if you're a male. How old you are. What?
Minorities.
Yeah, a little.
But it's not like
African Americans are a higher risk than other Americans. How do you tell? Okay, this is off from that, but how do you tell? What is the greatest predictor for how long you will live? Do you know? This is an interesting something. Do you remember that?
Doesn't it have to do with your grandparents?
Yeah, how old your grandparents were. Well, how old you are for heart disease, as you age, you get, your risk increases, just that's the way it is. But here's the thing that this guy mentioned in this presentation he was giving at the National Wellness Conference. He said, of those common risk factors, you know, the smoking, high cholesterol, poor diet, overweight, diabetes, all of these different risk factors, 50% of the people who have heart disease have none of those risk factors. Did you get that? 50% of the people who, so we have 1,700 people dying every day of heart disease in America. 1,700 people are dying today, will die today from heart disease. 50% of them have none of the classic risk factors.
Why are they called classic risk factors?
Because that's what medicine has decided through studies and research. Okay, we know that smoking leads to that. We know that high cholesterol, well, we don't know about that anymore, but we know that obesity leads to it. And there's enough evidence to show that they do, classic risk factors. But what's going on with the other half? What?
It's hereditary.
No, hereditary is part of this. That's one of these. No, they're saying that there's enough evidence to show that there is a enormous emotional, mental component that plays into heart disease. Enormous. That's just starting to get, you know, when people say they died of a broken heart. Well, there's a real connection there.
So what are these two things? That's something on the news about broken heart syndrome or something.
Oh, it's hit the DSM-4 now. It's one of those. It's an actual disease they've diagnosed. And that tells us that it sounds like then, if that's the case, that they're recognizing that the emotions, that this is playing a part in our well-being. So I thought it would be fun and interesting so that's kind of, here's the negative side of this picture. What would be the optimum mind-body wellness or mental, emotional ways of being? And here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to just kind of get to 3 or 4 of you in a group. And I'd like you to have one. So just really quickly, just turn so there's 3 or 4 of you in a group. Just, it doesn't matter. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just turn so that there's 3 or 4 so you can easily communicate. And I'd like you to have one person with a piece of paper. Okay? So 3, 4, 4, whatever it looks like. But get so you can talk to each other. Because I want... Okay. Now, on your piece of paper, are we good? Has everyone got a grouped up? Okay, on your piece of paper, I would like you to write peak emotional wellness. Okay? Peak emotional wellness. If we're interested in how we feel, that's kind of the end game for everything we do. And we have some idea of what that might feel like, what that might, you know, joy, love, passion, whatever that is. We have some idea of what that might be like. The question is, what are some things that we can do that will help us achieve this? In other words, in our day-to-day activities, and I want you to avoid the obvious. Manage stress, exercise, eat well, get enough sleep, get out in the sun. You know, those are the obvious ones. I want you to avoid those, because we all know that. We've hit that. But what other things, what other ways of thinking, what other ways, and so I'll throw out one or two just to get you thinking. Things like service, or things like forgiveness, those kind of things. What other behaviors or attitudes, and that's two different things, can you incorporate or can you see would lead toward the end game of feeling really good? What do we know that seems to work to get us there? Okay? So we're going to take 3 or 4 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and just kind of bullet really fast, kind of brainstorm, no wrong answers, and see what you come up with. And try to get everyone thinking involved in this game. So go ahead and talk. So what I'd like to do is just kind of round robin this, and we'll see what you came up with, and then after this we're going to explore how does our list compared with what those guys at the Harvard Mind Body Clinic felt like were these top things that tend to lead toward peak mind-body wellness. So what I would like to do is just tell me, I'll go to each group and just tell me one thing that you have, and then we'll discuss it so that we all understand what you're trying to describe, and then we'll do the same with everyone else. So just give me one thing that you guys wrote down. Sharing talents? And in what way does that, why did that come up?
It kind of goes with service, I think, but if you're giving of yourself, like something that you do really well, it usually makes you feel good. So like, say you can play the piano really excellently, so you go and play the piano at an assisted living center or something like that. Or you're really good with special needs kids, so you volunteer at a school. Or
okay.
I think using your talents is rewarding because it's something you are good at, so you feel like you're good at it. But usually when you share talents, it's also doing a service.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent example. Okay. One thing that you...
Probably smiling.
Smile. So you just fake it until your muscles have given your brain the right message. No, there is something to that. Yeah, that's true. I always remember, I grew up with Lavelle Edwards. His sons were my friends, and that guy looked like the most grumpy guy. Everyone knows Lavelle Edwards, former football coach at BYU. His face like this. All the time. He was one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. He wasn't grumpy, but his face, that just reminded me of that. Lavelle Edwards. Okay, one thing that you have.
Being grateful.
Grateful. Okay, now we've played with that quite a bit. The secret, we played with that in there. Why did you put that on your list?
Because I think just appreciating small things add up.
In what way? It adds up in what way?
Instead of, focusing on maybe things you don't have, appreciating the small things that you do have can make you positive. So gratitude helps you be more. Does it?
I think it's also kind of part of the service thing too. Showing other people appreciation makes them feel better, and so you're giving of yourself. The other day I said thank you to an old man, and he acted like he'd never before been thanked in his life, and he was so excited.
You made his day.
His day, it really did.
Nice job.
Well, thank you.
See how easy it is to make people's day?
Yeah, it was. He was so happy.
I think that being grateful too is the root of all of those positive feelings, whether it's being honest or optimistic. If you can have a level of gratitude about all of those things, you're more open-minded to the other stuff.
Yeah, if you guys remember the stress management class, and on my levels of responding table, I'm convinced that's the highest attitude we can have. I've found few things that are, that's the highest way of responding to things, not the highest attitude, but the most powerful way of responding to something we can't control is by being grateful for our well-being and our happiness. It just seems to work every time it's tried, buddy.
Yeah, if you split the word up, it's just great attitude merged into one.
Mm-hmm. The great attitude, yep. I like that. Gratitude, the great attitude. Okay, beautiful. What, something more. What else?
One thing, taking time for yourself, doing the things that you know that you enjoy.
So, have you ever known people who, when you ask them, what they love to do, and then ask them after they answer, how long has it been since you've done that? Some of them are hard-pressed to remember the last time they did the things they most love to do. Does that make any sense to you? That you're living a life not doing the things that you most love to do. Well, seems like that's why we're here. Sort of.
Sometimes you ask them that and they don't even know what they love,
Right.
what they love to do.
Hard-pressed to find an answer. What do I love to do? Nothing comes to mind because they're so busy doing. Yeah. I think that's an excellent example or excellent comment. Okay, what other things did you put? Were you in the same group? Oh.
I found this half a person
Okay.
Wait, I have one though.
Oh, okay. Then throw it out here.
I think, well, for me, laughing and like healthy humor is important.
Laughter. There was, you've all heard of the guy, was it Norman Cousins? Have you heard of Norman Cousins' story? He was diagnosed with a disease called ankylosing spondylitis. That was the disease he was diagnosed with. I don't know why I remember that. He was diagnosed with, and they said essentially he was a professor. I think he was at UCLA or some Southern California school, and they said, "You have only this long to live." And he said, "Fine. I'm going to have the most blast of a time these last few months to live." And so he did. He went and he watched Laurel and Hardy, slapstick kind of comedies, and he loved, this was back when MASH, I know it's long before your time, but MASH was a going TV show, and all he did was he watched those and he just laughed and laughed and laughed. And time came for when he was supposed to die. He didn't. He kept on living. He went on tour. He wrote a book. I think he's passed on now, but he went on tour promoting the idea that we have to be laughing. We have to be, there's something very, very healthy for our immune system for laughter. Our immune systems love laughter. And they crank. Just like when the opposite is the case. There's really interesting studies on how stress affects the immune system. There was one study that I remember that came to mind just now, where they took, let me see if I could, oh yes, you can test immune functioning by salivary cortisol. We actually did a study with that here. So, in other words, if you've got salivary cortisol going, that means your stress levels are high. cortisol is one of the two stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, right? So they tested they had medical students who were in their first year of their medical work, and they tested their immune system at the beginning of the semester, and then they also, you can test for immune functioning in your saliva as well, and you can test in your blood. So they tested them for stress levels and immune functioning at the beginning of the semester, and then again right before one of their hairiest tests. And they found that when their stress levels went up and immune function went down. It was almost a direct relationship, a one-to-one relationship. The more stress they have, the less well their immune function is going. And some of us have really probably experienced this ourselves. We get to the end of a really tough semester and we just fight it and we just go, and then after the semester's over, we're just sick. Have any of you ever had that happen? Where you just, okay, I can't handle it anymore, and you just, for 3 or 4 days, you're just knocked out. Well, stress does it. Stress and the immune system are not buddies. They like to go the opposite way. So, and laughter, when you're laughing about things, and a lot of these things, when you're doing these kinds of things, the immune system gets the message, wow, we love that. If you're really stressed, one of the best things you can do is go on a roller coaster ride, one that you love. That feeling of exhilaration, you actually have chemistry that when you're doing something you love to do, your chemistry goes, wow, this is great. And your immune system goes, oh, we like this, okay, shunk. And it cranks.
Quickly, my mom passed away years ago from a really rare brain disorder disease. And in the end, she couldn't speak, function, she couldn't communicate, and it took away everything. And we put on it was so cool because we put on a Carol Burnett, Dean Martin, old shows, and she laughed and laughed and laughed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really cool. That's a powerful emotion.
Yep.
And it's a great way. It was just a beautiful way to communicate and know that she was still getting it.
Yeah.
Even though I couldn't see it.
Absolutely. That's neat.
Nice. Yeah. Really powerful. We're just starting to understand how connected all of our parts are. The immune system, our emotions, and the positive or negative effect it's having on us. So on Wednesday, we're going to continue with this, and I'm going to show you both based on research and what the mind-body guys at Harvard said were, here are the top things that you should do, and include, not excluding what the video showed us earlier today. So have a great day, everyone. We'll see you.